The off-season is here, and it is officially time to make the hard decisions that separate the contenders from the pretenders. We are looking at massive contracts, aging veterans, and the kind of salary cap gymnastics that keep general managers up at night. Today, we are putting 5 big names on the chopping block, including a massive decision on the offensive line that could define the entire 2026 season. Welcome back to the channel, Day Nation. We are diving deep into the roster breakdown today, looking at the cut candidates who might be playing their final snaps in Cincinnati. Before we get into the heavy hitters, do me a massive favor and smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a single update as we march toward the draft. Let's rip the Band-Aid off immediately and talk about the biggest elephant in the room. We have to talk about the left tackle position, and we have to talk about Orlando Brown Jr. Depending on who you ask, he's either a cornerstone of this franchise or he's up and down Brown. This conversation isn't just about performance. It is strictly about the Benjamins. We are talking about serious cash here. When you look at the salary cap implications, specifically the pre- and post-June 1st designations, the numbers are staggering. We are looking at a potential savings of over $14 million if the Bengals decide to move on after June 1st. That is a massive chunk of change that could be used to retool the defense or sign a playmaker. But then you have to look at the other side of the coin. His cap hit for 2026 is sitting right around $26 million. Is he worth that price tag? It is the ultimate risk versus reward scenario. I will give credit where it is due. The man was available. He played all season. And in a league where the best ability is availability, that matters. But was he elite? Was he the wall that Joe Burrow needs to stay upright for 17 games? That is debatable. Here is the rhetorical question you have to ask yourself before you pull the trigger on a move like this. If you cut Orlando Brown Jr., who is protecting Joe Burrow's blind side, the left tackle market is brutal. It is a wasteland out there. If you cut him, you are betting that you can find someone better in free agency or that you can land a miraculous rookie in the draft who is ready to start day one. That is a terrifying gamble. You might save money, but you might also get your quarterback hit twice as much. It's a classic case of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Personally, I think the continuity of the offensive line is something we often undervalue, but $14 million in savings is enough to make anyone pause. This brings me to our next fascinating case study on the defensive side of the ball, T.J. Slaton. This is a tough one because, on paper, the stats are solid. He came in, he did his job, and he was a big body in the middle of that defensive line. But sometimes, football isn't about what shows up in the box score. It's about the feel of the game. When T.J. Slaton was off the field, did you feel it? Because I certainly did. It felt like the run defense got softer. It felt like the pocket didn't collapse as quickly. It was noticeable. That is the presence factor. Even if he wasn't making all-pro plays every single snap, his absence made the unit worse. And that is a scary thing to subtract from a defense that needs to be getting better, not worse. However, you have to weigh that against the cap savings. Is he irreplaceable? Probably not. But are you actively making your team worse by creating another hole to fill? This leads me directly to the question of the day, and I want to see the comments section absolutely explode on this one. We are talking about cuts, we are talking about saving money, but sometimes it's personal. I want you to name one player on this current roster that you would personally drive to the airport to cut right now. Is it about the money? Is it about a blown assignment? Let me know who you are moving on from in the comments below. Now, sticking with the defensive interior, we have to talk about B.J. Hill. This is where playing general manager gets really tricky because now we are messing with the depth of the entire unit. If you are already questioning T.J. Slaton, can you really afford to look at B.J. Hill and say, yeah, you're gone too? B.J. Hill has a roster bonus due in March, which forces the Bengals to make a decision sooner rather than later. But again, look at the depth chart. If you cut Hill and Slaton, who is starting? You are looking at relying heavily on younger guys like Chris Jenkins Jr. or McKinley Jackson. Are you sold on them being full-time, 17-game starters for a Super Bowl contender? I'm not sure I am. B.J. Hill is the definition of solid. He plays a lot of snaps, he is durable, and he knows the system. In this league, solid is valuable. Everyone wants to find the next superstar, but you lose games because you don't have solid guys doing the dirty work. My gut tells me Hill stays because wiping out your starting defensive tackle tandem in one offseason feels like suicide for a defense, but the money always talks. Let's pivot back to the offensive line and talk about a guy who always seems to be in the conversation, Cody Ford. I feel like fan favorite might be stretching it, but people definitely know who he is. He is the ultimate depth piece. The Bengals brought him in to be that swing guy, tested him out as a potential starter, and he ultimately settled back into that depth role. The reality with Cody Ford is simple. He didn't start this year for a reason. But, and this is a big but, he is competent when he has to step in for a game or two. In the NFL, offensive line depth is the difference between surviving an injury and your season collapsing. If you cut Cody Ford, you have to replace him with someone who can play both guard and tackle in a pinch. That isn't easy to find. If you can find a cheaper, younger option who offers the same versatility, then sure, you make the move. But if you cut him just to save a few bucks and then have no insurance policy when an injury inevitably happens, you look foolish. I think this one comes down to what the draft board looks like. Next up, let's talk about a linebacker who lives on the bubble between defense and special teams, Oren Burks. This is the classic conflict between what the defensive coordinator wants and what the special teams coordinator wants. On defense, let's be honest, he was mediocre. He wasn't the impact playmaker you want at the linebacker level. If you are grading him strictly on defensive snaps, he is a prime cut candidate. But then you flip the tape to special teams, and he is a core guy. He is experienced, he makes tackles, and he knows his lane assignments. Special teams coaches will fight tooth and nail to keep veterans like Burks because they don't want to rely on a rookie who has never covered an NFL punt before. However, you have to ask yourself, are we paying millions of dollars for a guy to cover punts? If the defensive value isn't there, is the special teams value enough to justify the roster spot? In my opinion, Oren Burks feels like the most cutable name on this list. You can find special teams production from hungry rookies on day 3 of the draft. You don't need to pay a premium for it. Finally, we have to discuss the man in the middle, Ted Karras. This is another one where the cut crowd might be looking at the age. He will be 33 this season, and the savings, and thinking it's time to move on. But I'm going to pump the brakes on that immediately. Do you know how hard it is to find a center who can make the line calls, keep the locker room together, and snap the ball consistently? It is the hardest thing to find in offensive line play. Ted Karras brings a level of leadership and community presence that you cannot quantify on a spreadsheet. He is a Bengal, through and through. We talked about continuity with Orlando Brown Jr., but it applies tenfold to the center position. If you cut Karras, you are ripping the heart out of that offensive line room. Unless his play has fallen off a cliff, which I don't think it has, you keep the guys who you didn't make a mistake on. The Bengals have missed on plenty of offensive linemen over the years. Ted Karras wasn't a miss. You don't create a hole at center just to save a few bucks unless you have the next All-Pro ready to step in. So, where is your confidence level at right now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust Duke Tobin and the front office to navigate these cuts and free agency? Are we at a solid 8, or are we panicking at a 3? The Bengals have a lot of work to do. They have to balance the checkbook, but they also have to field a team that can compete with the Chiefs and the Ravens. Cutting guys like Orlando Brown Jr. or B.J. Hill clears space, but it also clears talent. It is going to be a fascinating few months. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we will be breaking down every single move as it happens. I will see you guys in the next video.